Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Radio Dead Air Tech Q&A. You've got questions. We've got guesses. I'm Nash. I've been doing Radio Dead Air for ages and ages. But in addition to that, I'm also an IT professional. With me, as always, my producer, Mike Gehrman, who also works in IT. If you have tech questions for us, you can send those to requests at radiodeadair.com. We will attempt to answer them for you. This week, where we normally do news, we do something a little special. It's part 2 of our holiday build guide, where we go through what's available for computers these days, and we look it over and we assemble a list of the best bang for the buck. This week we're doing the mainstream build guide, which we have put at like a $1,300 limit, which is slowly growing over the years, but you know, that's just the way of things.
And we both hit it pretty well.
Yeah, well, I wanted to circle back to last week briefly, because a lot of people asked me about why didn't we use one particular CPU? And it's actually a good question.
Which CPU?
It's one that it kind of slipped under my radar in a lot of ways. It's the AMD Ryzen 5 8400F, and it's going for as cheap as $135, which if I had
in a budget build really nicely.
Which if I had chosen that, I could have ignored the Intel build and gone with an AMD build. However, there are caveats on this one. The big one is while the image here it's in a box and it's got a cooler. It's not in a box. It doesn't have a cooler. This is not typically a commercially available CPU. This one is one that if you order this one, you're going to get a tray CPU, which is that's a CPU that you get nothing but the CPU and a little plastic clippy thing, and that's it. Some people on this even said they got it in bubble wrap, which works, but this is not what's considered a CPU that's for mass market sale. The other downside of that is while this shows, hey, it's got a cooler, it doesn't come with a cooler.
No, because it's tray CPU.
Right. That immediately adds $15 to $20 back to the price of this thing. So we're already back up to $150.
Yeah,
you have to buy. So you have to buy some sort of cooler to it. So while this is for this money, this gets you an AM5 system, modern platform, something you can upgrade from later on. The trouble with it is you're also dealing with, you have to actually add a cooler to it. So 150 is not a bad price starter CPU these days, considering that otherwise the next cheapest up CPU for, without, for Ryzen 7000 series is about $200. You get like the 8600G with the built-in graphics card for, what's the A600G going for right now, out of curiosity? With built-in graphics, that's going for about, oh hey, that one's down to as far as low as 170, which is that's a nice deal right there for the A600G. But yeah, this about as far down the stack as you can get is 150, because you do have to have some sort of cooler with this. So it's not a bad idea, and it's not a bad. It would possibly fit in to allow for a cheap build for a AM5. It's just there's trade-offs with it simply because it's a tray CPU. So now let's get on to this week, to our build that we're going to go for this week. Let's start with we're going to start with CPU. We'll start with the one Mike chose. You went with the 9700X, which is the 8-core, 16-thread, modern, most recent AMD CPU. Now, why'd you go with this one?
I just wanted to get as good a CPU in as I could. I said, I'm going to put my points, my dollars here in the things I don't want to have to worry about replacing relatively immediately, that are going to be more difficult to work on and replace than replacing, say, a card.
Okay, but I went with the 7700X for about
$50.
$60 less.
50.
About $50 less. And the reason why is performance-wise, there's almost no difference in performance between these two parts. Like quite literally, if you go through benchmarks, it's negligible. It's 3 to 5%. The 9700 is kind of a flop of a CPU. While the X3D parts for 9000 have been really good, that 9700X just sort of like a dead fish. I would not recommend it because the price difference and the performance difference, the only thing the 9700X has going for it is its lower wattage, and that's about it. Which
I will say, for some people, that might be a consideration.
I mean, it's not that much lower though. It's a 65 versus a 105, and that it doesn't run at 105 all the time. It's only runs at 105 when you like push it hard. And you could even put it on eco mode and run it at 65 watts if you want. So for me, I can't in good conscience recommend a 9700. Just because while it's a newer technology, it's not a better one, in my opinion. However, you did make a better choice. Well, we'll get to that in a second. We go with coolers next. You went with a liquid cooler, Arctic Liquid Freezer 360, Liquid Freezer 360, which is, that's a 360 millimeter radiator. Liquid cooler, which with Radeon, not Radeon, with Ryzen and the way they make it now, the cooler you can get the CPU, the faster it will clock, which is not bad. But for one, this is a $90 cooler. Right now.
There's way more expensive coolers out there, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it's true. But I had to go with an air cooler this year. I like to go with liquid coolers, but this year, simply because of, number one, air coolers have just gotten that much better. Comparably to liquid cooling, they keep making them better and better and better. I went with a Thermalright Assassin X Refined SE Plus, which is way more words than it needs to describe this thing. It is a tower cooler, 2-fan, 220 millimeter fans for $20, and it will definitely do the job. Now mine might clock lower than the liquid cooler, but this is another reason is liquid coolers are something that you can replace later. They're not hard to replace, and to get you going, I know mainstream build we're supposed to be like, well, more powerful, but at this bit,
more powerful and not necessarily something you're going to replace inside 6 months, 8 months, a year.
True, but also this is a pretty good cooler to start with, and this isn't one you won't really need to replace this one quickly. You can hold on to this one for a while. So there are two ways to go with it. If you want to go, another reason I recommend air cooling is I'm starting to be concerned about longevity for regular folks. If you're willing to put up with liquid cooler and the possibility it can just stop working, if you have that sort of technical mindset, that's one thing. But I know a lot of folks just want their computer to work and they don't want to have to worry about it. And it doesn't get much, I don't have to worry about it, than a hunk of metal. That's it. That's simple as it goes. So there are two ways of looking at it. Now I think you might have made a slightly better choice with your motherboard than I did. That's for sure. You went with an X870 gaming Wi-Fi from Gigabyte. We both went with Gigabyte, by the way. This is technically the X870 is really a B650E motherboard with USB 4.0. That's the main difference. That's it. The exact same thing. They just changed the name to make it seem like it's more premium, but it's actually a tear down class. This is a B650E, with a little bit. So for $189, however, that's, even though that's kind of a big price for a motherboard, that's not bad for what you get here. I didn't get much of savings on mine, and I did have to go down a tier. I went with a B650 Eagle, which oddly enough is the same one I used for the budget build. It's $160, so it's only like a $30 difference here. And it lacks PCIe 5.0. It lacks USB 4.0, so it's got a couple features. Motherboards are one of those you might want to splash out a little bit more when you're starting.
Because it's a much more complex, something went wrong with my motherboard, or I want to upgrade my motherboard. It's a lot. Gutting and redoing the entire computer is what you're doing there. I think the other advantage of mine is I have PCIe 5 support for drives, for storage interface. I don't believe yours does.
No, it's because the B650 only has PCIe. Well, no, it's got PCIe 5 for storage, but not for the card slot.
Video.
Right. And it's only got one. So, but again, PCIe 5.0 right now is still kind of like, doesn't matter yet, but it could. That's another reason why, if you want your motherboard, you want to put as much as you can into that to start with.
Yeah, so mine does support it for the video card and storage.
It's not,
which
there's not
might matter to some people.
There's not a lot of bells and whistles on this one. It's a very plain motherboard, but honestly, that's what if you just want performance and you don't really give a crap about, it's got headers on it. You could plug in RGB, I think, but it doesn't have the lights built into it. That who the hell cares? It's a question of what you care about. Is it performance, or is it, it'd be nice to have both, but still, this is a pretty good one for an X870. So Mike's got a better, I kind of,
especially at a $30 difference.
Yeah, $30 difference. It's a good choice there. RAM is pretty negligible. I mean, it's a toss up between the two of us because we pretty much went with the same thing. It's just different brands.
Yeah, $3 difference.
Yeah, Mike went with the Team Group T-Create Expert 32 gigs. His was DDR5 6000 CL30. I went with Patriot Viper Venom 32 gigs DDR5 6000 CL30, and there's only $3 difference between them. Team Group's a reliable name. Patriot's a reliable name. They're not like the high-end ones, but G-Skill, Team Group, Patriot, they are fairly reliable. They're known quantities. And so long as it will run the advertised speeds, RAM is RAM. You could potentially do a little more in-depth research and try to, if you're concerned about overclocking and you want to maybe overclock your RAM, but that's above and beyond this. For just to get it going, this will do the job. And we didn't get RGB on those because at this price range, I mean, you can if you want, but it's not going to make the RAM any faster. We both chose, and this is an excellent deal right now. You should only get from Samsung's website, by the way. We both chose the exact same storage drive, which is a Samsung 990 Pro with a heatsink, 2 terabyte PCIe 4.0.
Now I'm going to make a comment about this.
Yeah.
Because this annoys me slightly.
Yeah.
The Samsung 990 Pro with heatsink, $160. The Samsung Pro without the heatsink is $30 more.
Yeah. Without the heatsink, well, that's the kind of the reason why this is on sale. For a while, these hard SSD companies were building the drives with their own heat sinks attached to them. And the thinking was we'll give these are running hot, we'll give people heat sink. But then all the motherboards started coming with heat sinks. So when people went to look for an SSD, they're like, oh, I don't want to get the one with the heat sink because it might not clear my motherboard, or it might clash with the way the motherboard looks, or so I want to get the one without the heatsink and just use the one that came with my motherboard.
And so they're trying to clear their stock.
And now Samsung's like, shit, we've got a bunch of these sitting on the shelf. What the fuck are we going to do? All right, so we have to sell the ones, ironically, the ones with an extra feature for less money.
By the way, I was wrong. $20 more, not $30 more.
Well, still, $20 is $20. And for a 2 terabyte SSD, which does have DRAM, this one does have a DRAM cache on it.
It's got 2 gig of cache.
Yeah. So you got this. This is 2 terabytes, so it's good for not just your OS, but you also have room for games. It's a fairly large drive relatively for a main drive. And of course, you can add drives. Adding SSDs is trivial, so you can add more later. But to start off with, this is a pretty good one to get you going. And we both picked it because for the price, we couldn't. I mean, it was great for this price.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't beat it unless you went with some real no name that, I'm just like, I don't, or you didn't get cash. And at this price point, I'd say, no, we can afford to get the cash.
And for this price, for $160, you have to get it from Samsung's website, but it is available, and that's a great deal. So surprised by Samsung, given how much the SSD has been flaky. It depends on the model. The 980 was the one that had the big problem. The 990 has been fairly solid. There haven't been any complaints about that I've seen. It was the 980 model, so it's the one just before this. The 980 Pro seems solid. So, for video card, we took 2 very different tacks on this. Your CPU was a little more expensive, and your motherboard's a little more expensive, which kind of affected your graphics card choice.
What I had available for a graphics card. Yeah, it's still a solid graphics card.
It is. You went with the ASRock Steel Legend Radeon RX 7600 XT, 16 gigs for $330.
And I think the reason there's a version of this that was $10 more expensive, but it was the same card in black. And I'm like, no, I'll take $10 off and Clash.
Fuck it, yeah. This is a pretty good. It's at this price range. Another option here is, of course, you go with an RTX RTX 4060, 8 gig, but there are trade-offs. You get DLSS with the RTX 4060. It's about in the $300 range as well. However, you lose out on raw power. And the other thing you lose out on is that 16 gigs of video RAM. The 4060 only has 8.
Mine has 16.
Yeah, yours has 16. The 4060 only has 8.
Oh, the 4060. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, the RTX 4060 only has 8 gigs of RAM. So NVIDIA is not giving you as much for your money at this price. You're effectively buying into the name. The trouble is the 4060, while it has technically the features, it has the RTX, it has pardon me, I've been fighting a cold today. Sorry. Excuse me on that one. While it has the DLSS, it has the ray tracing, they're not that powerful. So even if you have them, you can't make use of them. So it's at that point, the Radeon makes more sense at that price point, because for raw rasterization, just the power to draw stuff, much better. It has a lot more video RAM for textures, which means you could run things in a higher resolution, which is going to look better automatically, and bigger textures will be run faster. So I know people are buying NVIDIA just because of the name quite a bit.
I think people used to buy IBM computers.
AMD is kind of shot themselves in the foot a lot with the Radeon this year, because what they were doing is they would release these cards priced higher at launch, because they were trying to be competitive with NVIDIA. And then they'd come out and people would be like, well, we're not going to buy them because of the name, or because, well, we want the NVIDIA features. So then a few weeks later, they'd have to bring the prices down. But by that point, the reviews had already come out. You'd have people saying, well, it works great, but the price is too high. And they should have just released them at what
the final price point was going to be. Yeah.
Which that does play over into my graphics card choice. I went big boy. for about $130 difference on this. I went with an ASRock Challenger, a Radeon RX 7800 XT 16 gig because screw it. That is 16 gigs of RAM, which is 16 gigs should be the standard. In fact, Intel might be making it the standard thanks to Battlemage. Their mid-levels coming out with 16 for $250. We actually have a question about that. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
16 gigs should be at this point in time in 2024, 2025. You shouldn't be selling an 8 gig video card for more than $200.
I don't think you should be selling a 12 gig video card for more than $250.
The 12 and Intel's 12 gig is only $220. So, you know,
there we go.
There we go. But regardless, I went with this big Chungus because this is actually trades blows with the RTX 4080 in everything, but again, ray tracing and DLSS type stuff.
And
but
if
it's
you're
pretty
not
good.
into those things, congratulations, you just saved a bunch of money.
It is on FSR is not as perfect as DLSS, but it is pretty good. And it does they do have frame generation as well. They have a lot of the same features. And just raw power for the money, it's a good buy. That said, don't forget used cards are always a good option if you can get one with buyer protection. So go through something like eBay or something. As long as the card's in good shape and as long as the seller is legit about it, they are it's a better deal in some regards because you get the same thing. Same with CPUs if you can do it. But if you're buying new and you want to buy new, it's a lot of video card for $470 right now.
Indeed.
And if I'm building a Chungus to play the game with, then for cases, you went with the Montech Air 903 Max, and I think you got a better deal on your case, honestly.
Has 4 fans included, 3 front, 1 rear. 4
included fans, yep. Mesh front, airflow oriented, full sized. I think, you'd have to put the 360 in top because it doesn't have front. It doesn't have room, or does it? Does it have a cutout there? No, it has room in the front. My bad. The doghouse or the cover for the power supply is a cutout for it. So, yeah, you get the front liquid cooler. Glass side and you come with 4. Now the only catch is those fans, they're not ARGB. They're RGB. And that pattern you see right there, this is kind of the catch that, because we are at the low level. That pattern you see, that's it. It doesn't have any patterns. It just looks like that.
All the reviews refer to it as ARGB fans. So I don't know if that's the reviewers not understanding what they had, or maybe it is ARGB now and no one and the listing is not updated. Don't know.
Just for reference, ARGB is red, green, blue that can be the individual LEDs can be adjusted.
RGB stands for addressable, right?
Addressable, yes. Addressable RGB. That means the individual RGB lights, the LEDs, can be changed to a specific color.
Or turned off.
The trouble, and regular RGB, which came before, could only do one color. The whole thing had to be one color at a time. This is not even that because the fans, you see that color, that one is blue, green, red, yellow, orange, red. It is technically RGB. Because it has a red RGB, it has a red LED and a blue LED and a green LED and a yellow LED. So technically it's RGB. Regardless, it's 4 fans that come with the case. You can replace these later. They are functional, they work, and you get them with the case for no extra money.
That front mesh panel pops off trivially for cleaning.
You kind of had the better idea on this one because you got 4 fans with yours. I went back to the Fractal Design Pop Air, which only comes with 3 fans, by the way. Last week, I think we kind of
I'm gonna say just real quick. I did just go to the Montech site and look up this case, and it says they ARGB and shows videos of it changing colors.
Okay, well then that's fine then. Then you're great. That is an even better deal. Mine is technically more expensive. I think. All right, last week we showed the Fractal Design Pop Air RGB. It was going for like $60, and I think we fucked up, or at least I fucked up, because now it's going for $100. So I guess a lot of people must have gotten interested in it. My bad. I'm sorry. I don't know if my little show had any influence on that, but
maybe a couple sales. I don't know that we're big enough. We're not. Yeah. We're not Linus Tech Tips, where they see us talk about it and they go, everyone goes, "It must be mine."
Yeah, because we have integrity. That's why we're. Anyway, sorry. Whoopsie. Anyway, did I say that one out loud? I said that one out loud. Anyway, so yeah, this one is actually more expensive than the RGB one for last week. This is at $80. Honestly, I think Mike had the better choice of a case for 75.
Now I'm not gonna lie. I honestly thought about trolling the channel and picking that NZXT case again. for about 5 minutes, I was like, should I do it? No.
But yeah,
because only Nash and I will find it funny.
Yeah, for $75, this is it's
a decent case.
Yeah, Montech has been very aggressive, just like Thermalright has been very, very aggressive with air coolers and even liquid coolers. Montech has been very aggressive in pricing cases right now on the budget side of things, and even if this is not really all that super budget, because it's got a lot of good features on it. It's glass sides, including fans.
It is super budget for what you get.
Yeah, I mean it's a nice case. This is one.
I mean, I've seen cases $15 cheaper that had one rear fan.
I mean, this is a case you can get and you can keep and you'll have for a long time. We both also went with the same power supply. We went with a Rosewill 850 watt. Now I didn't this is a fully modular 850 watt, 80 plus certified gold power supply. I kind of didn't want to go with Rosewill. But for the price, Rosewill is a reputable brand. It's Newegg's house brand, and for $80, that's one of the most affordable,
indeed,
affordable power supplies for the price for the power provided. If I wanted something else, I would have had to gone down all the way to 700 watts for the same amount of money.
Now, I suspect your build is in the neighborhood of sub 400 watts. So 750 could have done for you.
Yeah, but still, I mean, for going forward, build proof. What's the advantage with modular over non-modular? Cable management, basically.
You don't have to plug in the cables you don't need.
And that means it's easier to deal with the cables inside your case, and that helps with airflow in some instances.
Yep. Now, there is one disadvantage to full modular.
Yeah.
And that disadvantage is putting the cables in a place that you are going to remember where you put those spare cables.
And not just that. Always remember with modular power supplies, only use the cables for that exact make and model, right? Because there is no standard for modular for modular cables. Every single power supply company uses their own standard. Even like Corsair has like 2 or 3 different standards within their own company. And the trouble is, even though the plugs can sometimes be the same, that you plug the the modular
That doesn't mean the voltages are the same.
Right. That doesn't mean the pins are in the exact same place.
What you would have to do, and I'm quite literal here, is you'd have to go, this is the pin, this is the end of the cable off of the power supply. You test each voltage, and then you plug in the cable you think you're going to use and go, is it the same? Is it the same? Is it the same? Is it the same?
It's one of the dumbest things that's come out of modular power supplies. Modular power supplies were a great idea. Not having any standard for them was a dumb one. So
now, I think the only kind of thing we're going to see a standard on anytime soon with the modular power supplies is possibly the PCIe 5.0
Hi, buddy.
plug, because they'll say, hey, we can't have these things melting down. We need you to standardize all this stuff. This is the pinout.
This cat, we have his many toys that we have bought for him, but he only enjoys playing with things that he steals off of my desk. He gains no joy if we give it to him. It must be stolen.
Okay, Nash, have you considered putting the toy on your desk
and not letting him have it? Yeah, we might restrict. You can't have this toy. That's what we're gonna have to do, Charlie. We're gonna have to trick you because you're a little weirdo. You're a little weirdo. Look at you. You're happy now. You're getting attention. Okay. Are we done? No, he's looking for something else to steal. Anyway, my only real concern about a Rosewill is the fans are, of course, I love Corsairs and Be Quiets because they have the fans they put into their power supplies are the same ones they use for their case fans, which they try to make those quieter. Be Quiet in particular, yeah.
Be Quiet tries to live up to that name.
Go play. The one that the Rosewill has in it, while it might be effective, it might not be as quiet as some of the others. Another thing is a more expensive power supply are designed to run with 0 RPM, which means the fan doesn't kick in until the power supply gets hot enough to need it. And with those cases, they use higher quality components that don't warm up as quickly or as easily under load. So the fan isn't as necessary. That's the only downside here is it'll still work just the same. It's just the fan might kick in a little bit harder and it might be a little bit louder. But, you know, for $80, it's a great deal regardless. And you can adjust the fans and the rest of the fans in your system to work around it. So grand totals. Let's see. Yours came out to $13.29, and that includes a couple of promos, a mail-in rebate, and a code. Mine came in at $13.22, also with a promo code. So we came pretty close. We did the best we could. Like another way, I probably could have shaved another couple bucks. What am I even saying? Another couple bucks is if I decided to go with a Ryzen 7600 or maybe even that 8600G. But I figured at this price range, it'd be kind of silly to jump down that far. Is it better to get all the parts at once or just get what you can until you're ready to assemble? That entirely depends on sales and what you're willing to put up with. Because sometimes you can get really good deals on something like during a specific sale and the price goes back up later. So it's not hard to get the part and put it on a shelf and just wait.
Yeah. For example, I've got most of the parts for my next computer out in the hallway here. I'm waiting on one part to come in.
Yeah.
Supposed to be in Wednesday. I'm not going to have it built for next week's show. I'm just telling you that right now.
That's all right. So yeah, that's our mainstream. It's pretty much there is no Intel at this range. There's no point. Their stuff is priced too high, and it's either outdated, obsolete with the 12th, 13th, and 14th, or it's the new stuff, which is not all that impressive for the money. Yeah. So both of those are Intel is just out of the market at this range.
I'm not going to even be using them in my unlimited build next week.
Yeah, me either. They they're on. I would say they're on the right track to getting their shit back in order, but they've got to go through this phase where this is as good as we've got it right now. We're gonna have to do more with it later. So, well, all right. That having been done, now it's time to get to your questions. Again, you can send those to us. I need to double check the YouTube channel. Pardon me. Switch this. Live, vamping live on the internet. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, yeah, we're good on that one. All right, let's look at the ones we did get another one come in, but it's not. So we got like 4 this week. Let's start with. That's last week's questions. We need this week's questions. There we go. Hey Nash and Mike, this is a pretty quick one. I hope. Is there a good reason to upgrade my DDR5 RAM from UDIM to CUDIM? Thank you, Adrian.
Okay, so a quick explanation of what we're talking about here. DIM, of course, is dual inline memory module. And that is what is referred to, basically all memory for your computer is referred to as that, whether or not it's a variation of that.
Right.
UDIM is basically the most common thing you have in your computer. No. But no one calls it UDIM, it's just DIM.
Yeah.
CUDIM has a clock on the chip to better manage things.
When DDR5 came out, one of the problems with it was getting the memory controllers on the CPU to get DDR5 to higher speeds. And that was becoming a little bit of a trouble.
Technical shortcoming.
Yeah, AMD kind of hit a ceiling where they couldn't clock things much past 6400, and Intel were able to clock things fast, but stability started becoming an issue. So what they did was they thought, okay, what if we take the timing clock away from the CPU and make a special timing clock and build that into the RAM chip? That way, we can guarantee it's going to hit these speeds, and we don't have to worry about the clock on the CPU doing it. That's what the difference between CU and UDIM is. Functionally, they are identical. If your RAM stick, if your computer can get the RAM stick to clock to that speed, they're the same. It's just the UDIM might have a little bit more issues because the UDIM might have more issues because it's relying on the memory controller and the CPU, and the CUDIM has taken the clock and put it onto the RAM stick. Now, this is only really starts to matter when we start getting to really high speeds. Like we're talking 8,000, 9,000. I think they're working on 10,000 right now. That's when it starts to matter. And some of CPUs right now, if you haven't like gotten a brand new one, there might not be able to handle those speeds even with the clock built into the RAM stick, because just it's not like the Ryzen CPUs. I don't think they can handle 10 or like super high speeds yet. No. Maybe they'll patch that in later with a firmware update like they did with the first generation of AM5 Ryzen. But right now, it's sort of,
it's a thing you can do, but there's no real need to do it yet, is what we're getting at here.
Yeah. If your RAM is running fine right now and it's running at its rated speed, you're not going to get any advantage to upgrading. If you want faster RAM, it will help you if you upgrade. But if you get like the exact same speed you have right now, only it's a CUDIM instead of a UDIM, it's not going to make any difference because they're both going to go the same speed. If it's already working at the speed it's rated to run, there's no point. Now, CUDIMs might help.
It's also really pricey right now.
Yeah. It may help a bit if you want to play around with overclocking your RAM to get a little more performance out of it. But, you know, again, you could try to overclock what you already have or not. And at that point, it's, I don't know. If what you already have works, there's no point. This is just, think of CUDIM memory as the standard we're going to use going forward. What already exists works. It just doesn't work optimally in all cases.
In 5-6 years, it may be that all you can buy is CUDIM.
Right. Yeah. The reason it's more expensive is it adds another component to the RAM stick. Not a real expensive one, but any addition adds cost. So, all right. So yeah, Adrian, that's hopefully that helped you out there. All right, Marcus has one. Hello, Nash and Mike and Kitties. I'd like to upgrade my video card to something more recent because I'm still using a GTX 1660 and it's struggling even when I turn things down to 720p. I'm going to assume that's on newer games. Because 1660 will handle older games, but if you're trying to do like newer stuff, yeah, that might make. But I'm on a very tight budget and can't afford a lot. What are the pros and cons of the new Intel cards? 250 is still a lot for me to swallow, but if it's worth it and the downsides are manageable, that sounds like a relatively good deal. Thanks so much, Marcus. Well,
so they've solved a lot of their driver issues, as we've said, for the last few weeks. And there was a rather charitable, not charitable is the wrong word. There was a rather nice article on Ars Technica about the B500 series saying this is well worth it. It's a year later than it needed to be, but it's well worth it.
The B580, and someone corrected me. Yeah, it only has 12 gigabytes of RAM for $250, but I expect the price on this will start coming down. For the money, it is about as good, if not slightly better in some cases, than an RTX 4060. And mainly it starts beating out the RT because they notice a weird thing about it. The resolution speed doesn't scale like you'd expect. In some instances, it can actually be faster than other cards at a higher resolution, which seems a little weird until you realize they gave it extra RAM. It has its own extra. That's where the 8 gig cards get smoked. So if you turn it up to like a 1440p resolution, then it can actually be faster in some instances than its competition.
Now, the problem you're going to find right now is finding someone who has it in stock at 250 because, well, it's the season for everything to be sold out.
And not just, I don't think Intel was not anticipating everybody want this because we're at a bad lull for graphics cards right now. Okay. The RTX 50 series is coming, but even if we start getting those cards next month or the month after, January, February, the cheaper cards, the mid-range cards, the 5060, that's not coming out until 6 months later. So end of next summer, we'll start seeing those cards come out. So if you want something right, and even then, those are probably, I would be amazed if the 5060 isn't starting around $350. I do not expect NVIDIA is going to release a $300 graphics card ever again, because screw him. So for $250, and AMD is probably going to have to fight with Intel here, but their new stuff isn't coming out for a while yet either. There's another Battlemage coming out in January, but it's only 10 gigs. It's the 560, I think. It's the 5, it's the B560. And it's only $30 cheaper. I don't think that one's a great deal. If that one comes down to because the price on that's going to be $220. If that comes down to say $180, I could see recommending a B560 for $180. But not for $220. Not considering it's only a $30 gap between that and the B580. I think the B580 needs to be $220, honestly, because while they have fixed the drivers a lot, just early testing of a couple of it. It still has a little bit of glitches in Starfield where the other cards are fast. It runs Starfield now, which the first generation couldn't do so well. But its competition is faster in stuff. But then other games, it depends on the game. So they're still working on drivers. That is something you have to take into consideration. It's a lot better than it was when Alchemist came out. Battlemage has come a long way drivers-wise, but it's still not perfect. And NVIDIA and AMD have a better track record on day one drivers, everything working like it should, because their architecture and their infrastructure has been around for a long time. Now, that being said, so the best cheap new card that you can get would be a B580. Mm-hmm. However, please don't discount getting used ones, because a used card could be a considerable value. Let's see, 40. I'm going to see what a 4060 Ti 16 gig goes for used right now. Let's see what the price is. I probably should have looked this up earlier, but
well, more than 250.
Even used? Let me look. Where's it used? Condition used. There we go. It's fine. Good Lord. 430 fuck you. 450 bucks. Fuck you. 400. So okay, so that one's kind of out of the and I wouldn't recommend a 4060 because, well, only 8 gigs of RAM. Yeah, it's 8 gig of RAM. Buying a used one is kind of pointless because the 580 will be faster than it. Yeah. The only other alternative would be, say, looking at AMD. Let me see what they're and going back to maybe the 6000 series for AMD. Let me see what a used RX. I have to make the distinction there. Yeah, RX 6800. That's you can get those. It is pricier. It's about $100 more. So I've seen one for.
Keep in mind, his 250 is tight for him. So.
All right, so let's see what a 6700 is looking like. That's a 12 gig card as well, by the way. Oh yeah, 6700 is about 250. But then again, the B580 is trading blows with the 7600. So a 6700 is not going to be that much. Dang. Well, yeah. I really can't. Yeah, I really can't see a good alternative. Yeah, the B580 looks like Intel priced this fairly competitively. It could be a little cheaper, and I think it will end up being a little cheaper. So maybe you want to wait a few weeks and see what happens. Unless it keeps selling out for 250, then the price isn't going to go down. It's a lot more stable. So yeah, I mean, for 250, you're going to see a considerable improvement over your 1660, considering how old that card is. If you can get your hands on one, like the only downside, okay, one downside is the drivers. They are kind of iffy, but they are constantly working on those, so that's good. The other thing is it uses more power. It's a 190 watt rated card, which is not a lot compared to everybody else. But in the same class, everybody else is using slightly less power. So take that. Let's see, what's the 1660 power rating? I think you could run those with just that was not a high wattage part.
No.
GTX 16. I think you run that with slot power. It's like power supply requirement.
The ARGB only has a need for one additional 8-pin connector across the top.
Yeah, 1660 only needed a 450 watt power supply. Had a draw of 125. So it's a little bit higher than what you have right now, but your power supply should still handle it. Because if a 450 watt power supply can handle a 1660, then it's probably yeah. So those are the main downsides. The pros are the price, which is only poised to get better, and the performance for the price. And hopefully, Intel putting a little pressure on Intel and AMD. That would be nice. I don't know how that's going to look going forward because we're about to go into the year of chaos, but I guess we'll see. All right, Diego's got one for us. He's got pictures. Let me put up pictures. Let's see. Because he wanted to show off his setup. So let's show off his setup here. It's a nice little setup over here. And doop, there it is. That is a nice setup you got. I must say. Let's see. Look at that. That is sweet.
Yeah, that's a pretty good little setup.
That's a nice little setup. Okay. Hello, Nash and Mike for the 4th week in a row. Yes. Hopefully last time I have set a question since I finished my new PC, 5700X 3D, RTX 3080, fairly solid system. Run into a problem with my case fans. My case didn't come with any, and worst of all, my motherboard only has 2 fan headers. One for the CPU, yeah, because you have a B550M, which is one for the cooler and one for the case fans. My first question is the best way to add more fans to my PC, or should I get a 3-way splitter and connect my fans that way? 2 in the front, 1 in the back, or should I get some sort of fan hub to add even more fans? I have a total empty front panel, USB 2 port, and I think I can connect there, right? Oh, no. Well, you could. Here, all right, what's the best way of doing it? Case is fairly standard, 6 fans, 3 in the front, 2 at the 1 in the back. Okay. A standard PC case fan header, at most, can handle 3 fans. Do not you can put a splitter on there and it will handle 3 fans, no trouble. Do not attempt to put more than 3 fans on a motherboard header because it will draw too much power and it will potentially burn out or damage your motherboard. So 3 is the max, and that's they all case fans run at about half an amp. And at full out, when they're full blowing, they draw half an amp of power, or I guess you'd call it 500 milliamps of power. 3 fans together, it's 1.5 amps, and that's about the most rated one of those SOTs is for. Well, rare or not fire, because mostly they have their designs that if they draw too much power, they'll break, and they just won't work anymore. And it might break something else on the motherboard. So that is one way of going. If your setup, the 5700X 3D, because that one's limited power-wise, you can't overclock that. The RTX 3080's probably got pretty decent fans on it already. 3 fans might be all you need for that case. 2 up front, 1 in back. So 3 might be all you need. And you already have the case fan powering your CPU power, so you're doing good there. If you want to get crazier, you could add a fan hub. Personally, I dislike using the ones that require software, and that's the same even after I've done it myself. And the reason being is if they start goofing up the software, they have goofed up your system fans. Now, while it is nice to have the ability to automatically control speeds going, that I don't like that. They do make a couple of different kind of fan hubs. There is manual fan hubs, which tend to be the cheapest, which you will have to have some way to adjust the knobs on them because they have little knobs. You adjust the speed of each individual fan. They also make ones, and this one you can attach it to that one fan connector on your motherboard. It is a powered header. Those can do up to like 6 or 7 fans, I think, because it takes power from the power supply, not the motherboard.
Yeah, there's generally a SATA connection that plugs to it.
The reason it connects to the motherboard is it reads the sense pin from the motherboard for the fan speed. With a PC fan header, there's a pin on there that tells the fan how fast to go. It's a way to keep it quiet when you're not running things very hard, or ramp it up when things get warmer. What these powered hubs can do is it can read that pin. So all it's doing is it's taking the data connection from your fan header and leaving the power coming from your power supply. That way you'll still get the ability for the motherboard to control the fan speeds without drawing too much power through there. And there are a couple like that. Let me see. Find one right now. Yeah, there are a couple. And they also do, they'll add an ARGB splitter as well. I like these because they don't require an external. Here we go. Cooler Master has one. It's about $20. There are others like this. I like these because they don't require software. They're just running off of the existing stuff. You can add whatever motherboard software Gigabyte has, or you can just run off the BIOS, which has a basic, fan speed control.
My case has one of these basically built in. So
yeah, they reduce
case out there in the hall.
Yeah. They reduce complications in your system because extra software. I really wish I had a way to just run all my stuff off the BIOS, because then I wouldn't need Corsair iQ for my stuff. If I could just run stuff off BIOS, that'd be nice.
Now, and the other nice thing about these hubs is that it's got the PWM controller, PWM cable going right there, and the ARGB cable for that same fan. You can put them right next to each other. So you go, this is this fan group, this is this fan group, this is this fan group.
So you can add, this adds the RGB capabilities as well. So you can add more fans as well as more RGB if you want. But just for the fan stuff alone, that's a better way of doing it than using a dedicated fan controller. You can use a dedicated fan controller if you want. Just understand that it's going to be proprietary software to a specific company. If they stop supporting it, that becomes a piece of, it's a hunk of junk later on down the line. You're tying yourself to an ecosystem. It's best not to do that. And I speak from experience, because once you're stuck, you're stuck. So try to do ones that don't need the USB controller. That way you have a lot more freedom going forward, and you keep your hardware viable for longer. Let's see. Yeah, all right. So that's that. One more came in from Erica. So this is our last one tonight.
I haven't seen this one.
I'm going to be setting up my new computer soon, and I'm reading a lot of conflicting information about using the online Microsoft account or an offline local account when setting up. Some say Microsoft has made it impossible to set up Windows 11 without an online account. Some say there is a way, but it's complicated. I'm not clear what the pros and cons are either way of using my Microsoft account, since I already have one for my phone. Is it worth me struggling to figure out how to do it, or is it more a matter of preference? Thank you, Nash Mike, for your time and advice. I will never reach IT levels of tech savvy. I always learn something from your streams. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. Okay. What we're talking about here is around Windows 10, even back in Windows 8. Microsoft's tried to steer everybody into using a Microsoft account to log into Windows. Before that, you would make an account to log into Windows on your desktop, but that account was local. It wasn't connected to the internet. It was just an account that the password and the account was located on your computer. Then Microsoft said, hey, why don't we get everybody's information and sell that data shit? So let's get their emails and all that shit, because that's what we do now, is we sell data. We don't worry about making things. We're ruining everything. The entire tech industry is broken. Yay. So they tried to quietly steer people into making a Microsoft account to make everything more interconnected. Ostensibly, and one of the reasons is it isn't terrible. There are functions to it. Like, for example, if you go to another computer and log into Windows 11 with your Microsoft account, it will try to draw down data from your other Windows computer, and your desktop will look similar and stuff, and it will have your information there if you like. But some people still wanted to say, no, I didn't want that stuff. Windows 11 made it very hard. They don't want you to do anything but use a Microsoft account, which is a pain in the butt for people like Mike, because governments don't let you sign on to your computer with a Microsoft account. They don't like that. They want local accounts. Now, Femboy Connoisseur in the channel has one of the ways around it. You have to force the console. I don't know if this still works.
I'm seeing some things that say it doesn't work with the latest update, but I don't know.
Yeah, they keep fighting it. Microsoft keeps fighting it. What you have to do is, as you are installing a clean install in Windows 11, you hit Shift F10 in the middle of the install. And what that will do, and what comes up is the command prompt. Let me show you what to type. We'll put it over here on the screen. There. You're going to want to type OOBE/bypass NRO. That's all one word. You see that right there. What that will do is that will trick the computer, force the computer it'll force the computer to let you install as if you don't have the internet, and then you can make a local account. Another way around it is you install using your Microsoft account, then you sign out of your Microsoft, you make a local account, and then you never use the Microsoft account to sign in again, which might not be ideal depending on how you want to set up that computer. It's letters, OO, not 00, OO. It's OOBE/bypass NRO. Now, if that seems like a convoluted thing, it is, because Microsoft doesn't want you to do this. They want you to use your operating system their way, which is why Linux is still very popular. Not always viable, but still very popular. But yeah, if you go with if you choose the I don't have internet option, you will be able to make a local. That's right, Raritor. It stands OOBE stands for out of box experience. So that's how you trick it. You hold Shift F10, the command prompt will come up. Now again, this is entirely up to you. It is optional. It's if you are concerned about what Microsoft is tracking and what they're doing with your account, and you are concerned about your own security, that's one thing. I use a Microsoft account. I'm not really concerned about it. It's never been a big deal for me. I also know, like, if I wanted to stop using it, I can. I do have a local account on here I can switch over to if I like. It's your preference and what you feel comfortable with. They add a couple features, but there's no real difference between using a local account, functionally, I mean, between using a local account and a Microsoft account. You aren't restricted from doing anything. Your system will still work exactly the same way. Yeah, if you want to, you can. If you don't, you don't. But here's the way to get around it. If you want to have the choice. Now, how long that's going to keep working, because again, Microsoft does not want you doing this. How long that's going to keep working is anybody's guess. Is still going to be an option with Windows 12 whenever that happens? I don't know. up to you whether you want to do it or not. So, all right, that comes up just after 10. That is gonna, that's gonna do it for us tonight. Thank you for all your questions, folks. We appreciate it. We'll be back next week, 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll have the final part of our holiday build guide. We'll be doing the no limits build. That's where we build a computer as if we have no budget requirement whatsoever. That's where we get weird. I like getting weird.
Weird and expensive.
And expensive, yes.
This is the kind of build where if one of us won the lottery, we might build something like this.
Yeah.
and I say might because if I won the lottery, there's a list of things I'm going to do first.
It's not at all practical, but it is a lot of fun. So that'll be next week. We always are taking your questions. If you have a question for us, you can send those to request@radio.air.com, and we will attempt to help you out with it. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can put this in the YouTube comments. I'll grab it there. Otherwise, until next week, we'll see you next time. Have yourself a good one. Night, everybody.